Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're taking what looks like your standard local property service guide, and we're peeling back the layers to uncover the hidden science professionals use when a property is quite literally under siege by a water disaster. It's fascinating stuff, so let's jump right in. Okay, picture this. What actually happens when 50 gallons of water just suddenly flood your living room? Well, I'll tell you, it is not just a giant mess to clean up, it's actually the start of a very literal biological clock. The exact second that water invades your space, a high-stakes race against time kicks off. You're fighting to stop irreversible structural damage and toxic mold colonies from taking over your home. It's totally chaotic, it's incredibly stressful, but as we're going to see, the way we fight back is almost mathematically precise.
To make sense of all this chaos, we'll follow a pretty structured roadmap today. We're going to start with the localized threats specific to citrus heights, break down the 3 categories of water, look at the golden hour response protocol, dive deep into the actual science of drying, and finally, walk through the restoration timeline.
All right, let's start with Part 1, the citrus heights threat, and what we call the perfect storm of aging infrastructure.
You know, when we talk about property damage here, we really aren't just talking about random freak accidents. In local spots like Sylvan Corners or Old Auburn, you've got these beautiful homes built back in the 60s and 70s, but they are sitting on original, aging galvanized plumbing. And that stuff, it corrodes right from the inside out. Then add in those 12-year-old tank water heaters in garages that just predictably fail, dumping water directly onto concrete slabs where it wicks straight up into the drywall. Throw in uninsulated pipes freezing during winter storms, the overflowing Arcade Creek floodplain, and even just constant summer HVAC condensation in the walls. Man, you have a literal perfect storm. It is a highly localized recipe for inevitable leaks and floods.
Moving on to Part 2, the 3 categories of water, basically identifying the enemy.
So the industry authority here, the IICRC, has really strict classifications for water intrusion. And the absolute biggest takeaway? Not all water is treated equally, not by a long shot. Category 1 is clean water, like from a busted supply line. Simple enough, you extract and dry. Category 2 is gray water. Think of a dishwasher overflowing. It introduces bacteria, so you've got to sanitize and dry it out. But then there's Category 3, black water. This is a severe biological hazard. We are talking raw sewage backups or river floodwater. You absolutely cannot just dry sewage-soaked drywall. The protocol demands complete removal of any porous materials, heavy-duty antimicrobial treatments, and specialized HEPA air filtration running under negative pressure. It's not a simple cleanup, it's a full-scale biohazard operation.
Which brings us to Part 3, the golden hour response, the literal race against the clock. Because of how fast things go south, professional mitigation teams will actually stage their equipment near strategic locations, like Rusch Park, for instance, just to guarantee a 60-minute dispatch time. Every single minute counts here. Step 1 is pure triage. Stop the active leak and make sure the place isn't going to electrocute anyone. Step 2 gets a bit high-tech. Crews use thermal imaging cameras to hunt down hidden moisture trapped inside wall cavities or under floors, stuff you and I would never see with the naked eye. And then, Step 3 brings out the heavy artillery. They use these massive truck-mounted units to literally suck thousands of gallons of water out of the structure per hour before it even gets the chance to wick up into the drywall and insulation.
Now, why all the rush? Well, it all comes down to one number, 48. 48 hours is the absolute hardline critical threshold. If moisture is still hanging around in the building materials past that 48-hour mark, mold spores, which, let's face it, are naturally everywhere, they're going to find that water and they're going to multiply like crazy. And once mold colonizes, the secondary structural damage goes through the roof. The entire goal of that frantic golden hour response is just to beat this 48-hour clock. Okay, let's get into Part 4, the science of drying. We are moving way beyond the old mop and bucket here. So, have you ever heard of psychrometrics? It's literally the science of the thermodynamic properties of moist air. Certified professionals aren't just out there guessing or feeling the carpet to see if it's wet. They're using applied physics to mathematically calculate grain depression, vapor pressure, and specific humidity. They take these hard numbers to figure out exactly how much dehumidifier capacity a specific room needs and precisely where to angle the air movers for maximum evaporation. It is, no joke, pure calculated science in action. And this right here perfectly highlights the massive gap between the DIY approach and certified science. The classic dangerous DIY assumption is, just pointing a box fan at a wet spot and crossing your fingers. Honestly, that is a guaranteed recipe for trapped moisture and hidden mold. The scientific method, on the other hand, means actively managing vapor pressure and calculating the dew point. For instance, hardwood floors, they need a highly specific top-down drying protocol using these crazy specialized injector systems. If you try to rush a wet hardwood floor with a cheap fan, that wood is going to cup, buckle, and warp permanently. Game over.
The source material actually sums this up so perfectly. It says, structural drying isn't about pointing fans at wet spots. It's psychrometric science. That really hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It powerfully reinforces that genuine restoration relies entirely on hard data, highly calibrated moisture meters, strict daily monitoring, and actual industry-certified expertise.
Finally, we arrive at Part 5, the restoration timeline. Basically, the road back to normal.
Let's take a realistic look at how this all plays out time-wise. Day 1 is all about that frantic emergency extraction and getting the psychrometric equipment set up. Days 2 and 3, that's your rigorous daily monitoring, constantly checking the moisture meters to make sure the room is actually responding to the math. By days 3 to 5, you'll usually see porous materials like drywall and carpet completely dry out. But look closely at days 5 through 7. Really dense materials like concrete slabs or those hardwood floors we talked about, they naturally dictate their own pace. They stubbornly hold on to water, and the physics of drying them out simply cannot be rushed, no matter how much fancy equipment you throw in the room.
So, how do they actually know when the job is done? Well, the finish line isn't just when a wall looks dry or feels dry to the touch. No way. The job isn't officially over until the daily data logs prove that the moisture content in the flooded zone has dropped enough to perfectly match a dry, unaffected baseline reading from somewhere else in the house. That strict, non-negotiable adherence to the data is ultimately what protects you, the homeowner, from nasty hidden mold claims popping up years down the road.
I want to leave you with this one final thought. If a pipe bursts and water flooded your home at 2 a.m. tonight, what are you going to reach for? Are you going to rely on a mop, or are you going to rely on psychrometric science? Once you understand the hidden complexities of structural drying, that ticking 48-hour biological clock, and just the sheer physics involved, it definitely gives you a profound new respect for true disaster mitigation, doesn't it? Thanks so much for joining me to explore this explainer today, and keep learning.